Hollywood in this industry, one or two of us get something. Why? Because of this supremacy type of situation. And one of the things about our leader Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, he masterfully dealt with them. He watched what he said. They couldn't catch him, and that was the great thing that the people knew about him. Now that he's gone, and we're going to go over that. I see today many people are trying to, through the that supremacy media, they're trying to change the image of our brother and create something that was not there. And just like these brothers took up and they stood up for this brother when he had got assassinated and put in that work to be able to protect his honor, that's what we're doing as far as his name, his reputation, and the truth about my brother. So go ahead. It's on you.
Alhamdulillah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. For the record, this is the I Buried Malcolm by Hajj Malik Hajj Malik El-Shabazz by Haji Heshaam Jaaber, published in 1993. I had the pleasure of being the editor on it, and hopefully we'll get a little bit into that story. This show comes about by virtue of the fact that we had some brothers actually on in your media, just like you said, but it was on the Black News Network, and it was 4 Muslims, and they were literally adjusting the narrative on who Malcolm was and what he was about at the time of his death. And it caused me to write a post, and it caused me to come to you because you have a broadcast here to be able to say, can we just talk about the real El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, what he was like in his last days, and this whole confluence that they're trying to say about his Islam. And so that's how we're here reading this. And so we're going to start with chapter 5 of the book. We're just going to read a short excerpt for it, inshallah. By that time, Sheikh Muhammad Heshaam Jaaber will have called in, and he can talk more in depth about the surroundings of his dad and the burial of Malcolm X. And anyway, the book begins, or at least chapter 5 begins Sunday, February 21st, 1965. My phone rang. The message, Hajj Malik El-Shabazz had been assassinated. My first words, from Allah we come, to Allah we shall return. And I thought, Hajj Malik is martyred, and martyrdom places one in the ranks of the prophets. Then I realized how religion and the world are broken. Throats are cut, injustices reign, while the blood of heroes is washed away. The waves of revolution, the shouts of protest, the flames of rebellion have all been calmed. Excitement and enthusiasm have diminished. The caller asks, when were the Muslims going to claim the body of the fallen martyr? I am on my way, I replied. But soon another disappointment occurred. I called the Islamic Center in New York, where our brother Malik had taken the declaration of faith, was oriented to the fundamentals of the faith, and recommended to perform the Hajj. No answer. After about a half an hour, I called again. Someone answered, and I explained what had happened. I was told that the director had been called back to his home in Egypt, and no one was there, so the center was closed. I placed another call to the Islamic Mission of America under the directorship of the late Sheikh Dawood Faisal, also a Haji. Response, Malcolm was not really Muslim. I was sure that this learned man knew the criterion established by Allah for one to be called a Muslim, and his response surprised me. I had assumed that everyone was aware that Hajj Malik had made the pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, and that he knew that non-Muslims are not allowed in the holy precincts of Islam. I made similar calls to Hajis in New Jersey, and the response was negative. By this time, the Muslims in the local community of Elizabeth, New Jersey, were knocking on my door, up in arms, shouting, let's hurry to claim our brother Hajj Malik, who is now a martyr. When I asked how many were in the entourage, the answer was 60 thus far, with more ready and waiting. I thought about the leaders who had responded negatively to my inquiries. My thoughts, shadows of fear and strangulation, have spread over the silent cemeteries of martyrs, as well as on the cold and silent cemeteries of the living. There is not even the hoot of an owl from our leaders to be heard in the ruined places of faith and hope of the Muslims in this particular country, USA. I then, at the request of my wife, Latifa, called my dear brother in Brooklyn, whom I went to a pilgrimage with in 1962, Hajj Amir Hassan. After a brief discussion, I learned that he had less success with the leaders in New York than I had in New Jersey. I thereafter called for a meeting of the community of the brothers in Elizabeth, New Jersey. That's
Wow.
the chapter of the call. And the reason I think that chapter is important is because in that time, those of us who lived through that time, we understood the dynamic of what was going on. You couldn't go anywhere where there wasn't an antagonism on what was called Sunni Muslims, Nation of Islam, immigrant Muslims, etc. There was always a give and a take and a push and a shove going on at the time.
Right.
And the question for us in our community was really simplistic. Brother died a Muslim, brother gets buried a Muslim. And you could literally see almost every community running away from the burial of Malcolm, Hajj Malik Shabazz, as a Muslim, using every kind of excuse they could to get away from it. But the people in the community that I grew up with were like, no, let's go get him. And they were willing to do whatever it was as men and as Muslims to step forward and
Yeah,
go
that's
ahead and
beautiful.
claim
That's why. I mean, how old were you when?
11?
11.
11.
So I mean, you were
tell you-
awake and alive and knowing
Bruh,
what's going on.
I
and
tell
stuff.
you see
So,
the kufi you have on?
Yes.
That was the first time I put my kufi on. When I saw all these men gathering and I understood, my dad
Right.
was explaining, this is where we're going. This is
Right.
what we're going to do.
Right.
The sense of pride
Right.
of being a Muslim. I mean, you
Right.
can imagine you're a Muslim, you're the only one in your community. We knew the Jaaber family,